Hey folks, Kilt-Man here. Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? We're all doing very, very well. Now, here's a video I did not anticipate doing. It's about Exorcist III. Hitherto, from this point onwards, known as Legion, because we're going to focus on that version, the original version, before it was restructured by Morgan Creek, the producers and distributors, largely against the filmmaker, director and writer William Peter Blatty's best intentions. Blatty, of course, had written The Exorcist, the original novel, which Friedkin turned into a cinematic masterpiece, a milestone. We've got Exorcist II from John Boorman, which, I'll be honest, I don't hate it. It's derided and loathed by all and sundry. But I will say this, it's now beginning to get a bit of a groundswell of newfound appreciation. I don't know, maybe another generation has discovered it and thought like, no, it's not as bad as everyone makes out. Well, it is, from a certain point of view. But I still like it. It's bizarre weirdness. And if anyone's going to do bizarre weirdness, it's John Boorman. Anyway, we're going to focus on this, Legion, because I've covered Exorcist III before. It's important to differentiate this. Exorcist III is not what William Peter Blatty wrote or directed initially. He did his own screenplay from his own novel, Legion, and which has links to The Exorcist, but it's not overly dependent on The Exorcist, not his original vision. Now, I've covered the studio version before, with particular regards to George C. Scott's phenomenal performance, and also one of the best cinematic screen scares, the big jump scare extraordinaire with the nurse and whoosh, and all that. Yes. I've discussed that at length before. But what I've never done really is give my thoughts on Legion, the version which was the original cut that Blatty did, and Morgan Creek then insisted, no, it's an Exorcist film. I said, no, it's called Legion. It has its roots in The Exorcist, but it's actually a different story altogether, with one of the same characters, but that's as far as it goes. Well, two of the same characters, or whatever it is. And they went, no, it's got to have, we've marketed it now as Exorcist III. It's called Legion. It's Exorcist III. And if we're going to call it Exorcist III, we need an exorcism. So bring in Nicole Williamson as Father Morning to come in at the end and save the day from all the madcap, catatonic, zombie-like legion of assassins, which the Gemini Killer and Pazuzu and the possessed Karas are using to, cause evil around Georgetown, Washington. And it doesn't belong in the movie at all. Back in the day, 1990, of course, everybody expected, wild special effects and gore and prosthetics and a bit of pyrotechnics. And this is a film, if ever a film did not need any of that, it's this movie. But they tacked it on anyway. But in so doing, then they had to backtrack and remove certain scenes, which were telling a different story, going off on a different tangent. Legion is a different story altogether. And they had to go back in, re-edit it all, and put this extra bit in, bring back Jason Miller for little flash cuts of Father Karas on Brad Dourif's face. Brad Dourif, we all know him, is a genre, demigod. And in the studio cut, Exorcist III, you only see a marginal version of his performance, which is electrifying. In this version, oh wow, you get all of that. And it's a really incredible performance, given the fact that he's just in a straitjacket and sitting on his bed in a decrepit old cell in the insane wing of a hospital, and he gives this mesmerizing performance, all vocal mannerisms, expressions, mimics, and starry eyes. It's all that. It's theatrical. Anyway, we'll come on to all that. I'll say right now, I'm not going to go through the film scene by scene by scene. I'm not going to do that, because Astradyne sent this to me out the blue, and I didn't expect it, and I'd seen the Legion cut before, and I'd seen it on the Scream Factory, the US version, and initially I didn't like it, and I'll tell you exactly why. And it's me being a Philistine as well, how they got this version together, because they'd lost all the 35mm footage that Friedkin shot for his original cut of Legion was gone, presumed lost in the mysteries of time. Probably in some burial site, excavation site in Iraq somewhere. And so the rumours that it could exist, and Blatty's original version's far better, and blah blah blah. And Blatty's, of course, yes, it is. So his script for that came out, and with Mr. Exorcist himself, Mark Kermode, Mark Kermode helped him re-edit the original screenplay for a publication with the Exorcist screenplay and Exorcist III, well, Legion, for Faber and Faber, I think it's called, isn't it? Faber and Faber Books. And so Mark Kermode had a lot to do with, restructuring it. And Blatty, who became a firm friend of Mark Kermode's, showed him some. I've actually got some VHS tapes of the daily rushes and all that, the dailies that we were filming, and it shows you Brad Dourif's exquisite performance. So, Mark Kermode was like, yeah, that really is good. So he began to showboat this version, and it gained a bit of traction. And then Scream Factory said, we're going to find all those old tapes, and they're going to reconstruct the movie, which is what they did to the best of their ability. And their best is brilliant, but it is jarring. Two reasons. One, they can't get everything. There's still loads of footage which is missing. And there's bits that were never actually filmed because obviously Blatty was told, no, we're going to go with this story now. We want the exorcism scene at the end. You've got to bring all that in. So to tie that in, you had to ditch bits and not film other bits he had intended to do. But what they found was a hell of a lot of VHS, sadly VHS quality, and pretty poor VHS quality at that, of the daily rushes. So it'll go from a glorious widescreen image to a little pan and scan image in the middle of the screen, and it's grey and grainy, and there's a bit of wobble on it as well. The editing is spot on, literally spot on between the newer scenes, which is the majority of the film, to be perfectly honest. You've still got the majority looking great, especially in the 4K. I should say the Legion version is not in 4K, it's a 1080p. Honestly, you wouldn't want to see the VHS footage in 4K. It would burn your eyeballs out like Satan himself. And you've got to get used to the transitions from widescreen to little boxy stuff. But it works once you adjust to that. It really works. Now, I had a problem with that initially. I thought, this is not what I want to see. It's annoying me. And then, of course, it remains a very talky, wordy, dialogue-heavy movie with lots of long, quiet longers and lots of great, exquisite photography, but nothing really happening. And with nothing really happening, and without that big pyrotechnic finale, which I knew wasn't going to be there, I kind of I'm not in the mood for this. I want to see something. That is my error at that time. I've said this a lot, but when you review movies, especially, it becomes very apparent when you review movies. And I've been reviewing movies for many, many years, for different platforms, for newspaper, for radio, for AV forums and other websites, and then obviously now I do all this. And many's the time that I've reviewed a film when it initially came out. One that springs to mind every time I think of this is Spielberg's War of the Worlds, which I lambasted when I first saw it at the flicks. I thought, what? It's called War of the Worlds. We want to see the war. We want to, And there's a great scene where Tom Cruise says to his son, because his son's going over that hill, there's all pyrotechnics and laser beams and explosions, but you can't see it, just things in the air. And the US Army's engaging, the aliens, the Martians, and he's going his son's going, I need to see this. And Tom Cruise is going, no, you don't need to see this. And I used that piece, going, yes, we all need to see this. Spielberg, what are you doing? You're the master of all this big scale stuff. We need to see it. And then it came out on Blu-ray, and I reviewed it again. I'll reappraise this. And I was blown away by the movie. Now I champion it, because that's the whole friggin' point, which I missed first time round. You don't need to see this. That's the point he's making. And it transformed the film for me and became a much more emotional, much more intimate sort of story, and I fell in love with it, and now I really, really adore that film. And there's many other examples of films where I've initially couldn't stand them, or initially loved them, and then watched them again and got, fucking hell, what was I thinking there? What a pile of shite that is. What was I on that night? I obviously wasn't drinking the refined Glenmorangie. Yes. Aye, there we go. Cheers, y'all. It's gone very dark all of a sudden. Can you hear someone Gregorian chanting? I am playing Barry Dvořák's uncomfortable but brilliant score for, well, Exorcist III. It's not the score for Legion, because obviously it's been chopped and changed and all that. But anyway, so I did not like the Legion cut. I admired Brad Dourif's performance in the far extended talky bits in the cell with George C. Scott. And I thought, well, I know what you're going for here. It's a more intimate sort of story. It is not a big fiery showdown with the devil or Pazuzu. Pazuzu, bless you. So I appreciated it, but I didn't enjoy it. And then Astradyne sent me this, and I thought, I'm not gonna watch the 4K version first, which ordinarily I would have done. The 4K version is the theatrical studio cut that we all know. I thought, I'm gonna put on Legion and just see if I enjoy it. So I did this. I didn't go to the pub yesterday at all. The devil moves in mysterious ways. And I didn't go to the pub. No, I didn't. Didn't have a drink at all yesterday. I sat and watched Legion instead and was blown away. It is a markedly different movie. Visually, of course it is. It has to chop and change. The basic story is still the same. Obviously, murders are taking place in Georgetown, and they're after the fashion of the Gemini killer from 15 years before, who was caught and sent to the electric chair. But so end of the Gemini killer. Well, who's doing these killings now then? And the basics are, he had a certain modus operandi, which the police, with Lieutenant Kinderman, George C. Scott, who's a character from The Exorcist, played by J. Lee Cobb, George C. Scott, Lee J. Cobb, and so he's a holdover, and he's now formed an attachment, a brotherly, friendly attachment with Father Dyer, played by the great Ed Flanders, to mimic the relationship he supposedly had or was gonna have with Father Karras, where they'd be good buddies, go and watch movies, old-fashioned movies all the time, and have dinner out and discuss life, the meaning of, and all that kind of thing. And but Karras is dead. Now he's friends with Father Dyer, and Ed Flanders replaces the original, the real life priest at the end of The Exorcist. Karras has took the plunge down the steps, splat, and William Peter Blatty, and freaking famously, infamously, look, Father, it's a real life priest playing Father Dyer. I need you to be crying over his body. Give him the last rites and cry. And I said, well, he couldn't cry at all. He goes, fucking so help me God, I'm going to make you cry. Well, he's trying to squeeze out crocodile tears. Freaking just goes, fuck off. Slaps him in the face. Boof. Cry now. And he's like, and you can see the real life priest is like, he's shaking. He's not an actor though, but that's real stuff you see in there. So obviously they didn't bring him back, but they bring in Ed Flanders. Ed Flanders, who was in William Peter Blatty's The Ninth Configuration, along with another couple of people in this movie who were also in Ninth Configuration, which is an important player in Blatty's oeuvre between The Exorcist and Exorcist III Legion. I'm going to keep making that mistake. I said I'm heretofore, it'll only be known as Legion, and I'm going to keep screwing that up myself. I know I am. So, Ed Flanders and George C. Scott are now buddies, but these murders are happening, and they're happening in the form of what the old Gemini killer used to do. Only George C. Scott knows that we lied to the public and the press about what he really does. He takes a finger off one hand and he writes the Gemini symbol on the back of the victim. So of course we did that on purpose so that anyone would come in, all the nut jobs going, I'm the Gemini killer. Okay, what did you do then? Well, I took this finger off this hand and I made my sign on the back. And they know, well, you're lying because that ain't the truth. But the killer that's doing this now, 15 years later after the original Gemini killer has been electrocuted, is doing the exact thing that the real one was doing. Now, into this mix, Father Dyer gets murdered, of course, and it's superbly creepy and horrible because he's had all of his blood pumped out of him, squeezed out of him, every last drop, except for a bit of a smudgy bit left at the end, which is always difficult to get, you know. And with that bit of blood, there's been a message written on the wall. He'd gone to hospital over just tests, just little bits, just tests, and but didn't survive the night. So of course, his new Bezzy mate, Lieutenant Kinderman, is now, I've got to find out who's done this. And he's been killed, and he's got the sign, he's got the finger missing correctly. So I want this hospital locked down. And you spend a lot of time in this hospital. You will encounter the psychiatric wing, and you'll encounter the really violent, insane wing, which is further down, with double doors and like electronic surveillance systems and all that. And in there is Patient X, who came in 15 years before, dishevelled, disorientated, complete amnesia, found by a riverbank, and he seems to have arrived at the exact same time that Father Karras died. Look, I mean, you know all this. It's the soul of Father Karras is in the Gemini Killer, right? We've got to differentiate, because the original, the Exorcist III cut is different, because you will see Jason Miller's face. Jason Miller played Father Karras. You will see Jason Miller's face, and he will act in a lot of that movie. Whereas in this original cut, Legion, it is just Brad Dourif, because Brad Dourif is Father Karras. And I know. And what makes this version great, and I understand it now, because it goes off on a different track. George C. Scott recognises straight away the man in that cell is Father Karras, my former best friend. He's in that room there. But how can that be? You know, he died. He's in that room. But of course, when we're watching it, it's like, well, it's Brad Dourif in this original Legion cut. Kinderman and Dyer meet, and they go and watch It's a Wonderful Life. They go and watch that, their favourite film, together. And they go out for a meal afterwards in some bar, some tavern. And they're ordering food. They're having a big theological debate. Life and death, what's it all mean? Oh, we're just spirits, you know, we're going to move on. This is just, don't worry about any of this. You know, everything gets sorted out in the end. It all works out in the end. But Kinderman's like, you know, he's a bit more skeptical about this sort of thing, a bit more cynical. But they keep showing. And this is one of the little shots, from the original cut, so a little VHS box in, and you will see on the wall there's all pictures of priests. They're all like Father Ted. They're all having parties, and yay, having a great time. And it's very similar, I think, to looking at Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining, where he's in the photo, the big party at the Overlook Hotel. He's in there. Well, in this photo, you've got Brad Dourif is there, and that is so now you know, because they're out they go to Flicks to see It's a Wonderful Life on the anniversary of Karras's death. They do that. That's their ritual every year. But you see, that is meant to be Father Karras. So quite obviously, when you go into the cell and George C. Scott, Kinderman, sees him, that man in there, that's Father Karras, because that's him. So it makes more sense now. And there's many more little sequences that add a bit more flavour, a bit more nuance. It's worth remembering that William Peter Blatty is a comical writer. He's very literate. He loves wordplay. He loves to discuss, you know, theories of existence and belief and faith, science, medication versus, you know, spirituality, all this sort of thing. But he does it in a jokey, heavily debate-heavy fashion with people who are not necessarily young and, like, you know, really, you know, sparring, you know, verbally, you know, jousting. It's with older people. This film in particular, older people who were discussing, maybe they're at the eternal life where these things are really important to them. But of course, our characters discussing things that are important to them because people are dying all the way around them. And there's a heavy demonic, satanic element to it all. So, in this film, the heads are taken off as well. A priest gets his head taken off. A poor lad who's a church cadet, whatever you call him, a poor little lad at the start. You don't see any of this. You only hear about the aftermath. The film is not gory at all, but the heads are snipped off, and they have the symbols put on them. But lots of other things happen to him as well. Like a nurse gets killed, and all their internal organs have been removed, and then replaced with religious artifacts, rosaries and stuff, and then sewn back up together again. You know, like, what? Why? But it's just demonically horrible. But the Gemini killer symbols are always there as well. But I was going to go with that. I've done it again, haven't I? Hey, I should remind myself with a nice glug of Glenmorangie. I just love going. Yeah, so Blatty's a comedy writer. He wrote A Shot in the Dark, you know, the original Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau adventure. So he loves witty wordplay. He loves people to be articulate and to frame their sentences, not in the most sort of obvious sitcom sort of style, where it's you know, and then the punchline, and then the retort, and the staccato effect and all that. Like, no, he leaves sentences hanging. And the other characters, and this is where the performances come in, Ed Flanders especially, and George C. Scott phenomenally, do a lot with their face and with their eyes. Flanders is more of a comedy actor, without a doubt. You know, he's got that sort of, that witty sort of, I know what you're trying to say there, but you know, I'm a man of the cloth. I can't say what I really want to say to you, but you know, but fuck you, you know, basically. You can see that in his eyes. There's a mischief to him, but a kind of wild, weary mischief. He's been through it all before. He's seen it all before. And in a way, he's kind of like, you know, yeah, why, you people just don't get it, do you? I know more than you are ever going to know. And he's going to know all the answers very soon because he gets killed. And of course, George C. Scott is just, oh, Jesus. His dream, the dream sequence where you see an overdubbed Samuel L. Jackson sitting there. You've got like the waiting room, the station, which will take you to heaven or wherever you're going to go. It's the afterlife limbo, and it's a great big, you know, Grand Central Station sort of thing. Angels with like massive wings on them, and you meet the murder victims and all that. Like, and he's like, "I'm sorry you got murdered." To the little lad, "I'm sorry you got murdered." "Hey, it's okay." And his head stitched back onto his neck and all that. And they all got mad glazed eyes and weird stuff. There's a band playing. There's someone playing with tarot cards. A lot of really David Lynch like sort of epic weirdness and surrealism is in that sequence, and it's beautiful. It brings to mind like the likes of A Matter of Life and Death, and Here Comes Mr. Jordan, and Heaven Can Wait, which is a remake of Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which are all things which Peter Blatty was contemplating at the time, because they questioned existence and the afterlife and spirituality and the soul transfers. Here Comes Mr. Jordan especially. And you see a poster when they go and watch It's a Wonderful Life, and there you go again. There's a poster for Here Comes Mr. Jordan behind them. You know, when they're having the debate about, well, not a debate. Kinderman tells Dyer about, "I can't go home yet." "Why can't you go home?" "The carp." "The carp." "Yes, you see, my mother-in-law is staying with us, and she likes to eat carp. It's a wonderful fish. I have nothing against it personally, but she's bought a carp, right? And he says it's swimming up and down in the bath because you've got to take all its impurities out of it. It's full of poisons and toxins or whatever. But before you cook it, you've got to like let it swim all its horrible bits out of it, and then you can cook it, and it'd be lovely." And he said, "But every time I go home, the carp is just swimming up and down, up and down. So you see, Father, I can't go home. if I see that carp swimming up and down, I've got to kill it. He said earlier, I can't go until the carp's asleep. I had a debate about that. Well, again, it wasn't a debate. It was someone telling me what they thought that was all about. This is going back years and years and years. There was no Legion cut had been put together. And I was talking about Exorcist III at the time. And this guy went, well, it was a good friend of mine actually. And we were in a pub, as you'd expect. And he said, oh, here's the carp. And I went, oh yeah, the carp. Carpe diem, you know. And he went, no, you understand the meaning of it, don't you? And I was like, yeah. It's a jokey, character-based story showing the level of their affection for each other and their weird mannerisms, their world-weary mannerisms. And he went, no, it's the basis of the entire story. Okay. Wishing the wife would call me. You got to come home now. No. And for the first time, I'd actually adhered to it and run off. Cheers, y'all. I said, no, the carp is Lieutenant Kinderman. I went, okay, all right. And he's swimming against the tide, forever against the tide of what's really happening. His belief system's being questioned. He's being looked at by people from above, obviously in the bath. And he went through a lot of different theories, all which backed up his initial sort of like, this is where I'm going with this carp story. And I was like, you've read like Mark Commode's book on books on and seen his documentaries on The Exorcist, and all the other critics and people who've really taken a bite out of the meanings and subtext and metaphors and allegories for The Exorcist, and you're trying to run with your own, aren't you? He didn't convince me at all. He didn't. But because I just take that as a lovely character-based little witty aside. I suppose if you want to, these are films, and Blatty would love this. Blatty died in 2017, I think it was. Blatty would love all this sort of theorising and conjecturising. He'd say like, well, he'd listen to you patiently, see, Kinderman's the carp, it's right, going up and down, and people looking down him, and he's seeing himself basically, blah 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 blah, and is the carp really the devil? Is he the devil incarnate? Is he the conduit between heaven and hell and all that, and he'd just go at the end, no, didn't mean any of that. It was just a little witty story to make the two of them laugh, and introduce you to these characters properly, that they're both wordy and measured and deliberate in their responses and their dialogue. And this guy's going fucking at length. Jesus, who knows? Maybe he's got something to it. Maybe Blatty didn't get it right at all. Didn't know what he was doing. So the film, this Legion cut, has all the deaths and all that. You won't see the priest who gets his head cut off. The image of the priest holding his head in his lap in the confessional thing. That was never filmed, but they had to do it at the end. The studio, again, Morgan Creek said to Blatty, can't we show the priest with his head cut off? And he's like, well, I never wrote it like that. That was I didn't want to show it. I don't show gore. He famously had, a lot of issues with The Exorcist with Friedkin, the crucifix, fuck me, and all that. He didn't want to show any of that really at all, imply it. He written it for God's sake, but anyway, so with this, he went, oh God. And then he only thought, oh, all right, I better do as he say. I'll film it. So they filmed it separately, but they didn't film it very well because I'll do it so it's not really going to work out too well. But he had a crisis of conscience, and he thought like, oh, I said I'd do this, so I'm going to have to zoom in on it. He did it from a distance, so we'll zoom in on the shot, but it looked awful. It looked grainy. It looked faded because he'd had to use optical manipulation to get the close-up shot of the priest holding his own head, and that, of course, that picture got leaked to Fangoria and many other magazines at the time. So everyone expected this. And in this release, there's a full page, there's a booklet, there's a full page of that shot, of the priest holding his head. But it's not in the movie. It was never meant to be in the movie. And in a way, he said like, well, maybe I did it deliberately so they couldn't keep it because it looked so shit, We all love gore, but And it would have added a really creepy, element to it, but it was unnecessary. You still get all the statuary reliquary of Christ on the cross, and doors open and pulpits go flying and the eyes open, and blood drips down the eyes. A lot of statues where the heads have been cut off, which seemingly no one ever addresses these things. No one ever says like, oh, see that statue of Christ there? Well, what about it? When I left yesterday, its eyes were shut, and now they're open. And there's a Christ effigy in the hospital, and one of the killings, the head's gone from it, and only the camera shows us. No one, people walk past it all the time, or stand beside it, and no one even notices it at all. But then again, that adds to the creepy, unnerving quality of what's really taking place. The evil is permeating everywhere. We know it's Pazuzu, who now in this film, Brad Dourif refers to Pazuzu as the master, him, the other one, and the master's throwing me scraps from his table. And at the end, Karras has took Pazuzu into himself after Father Merrin's been killed, and he legs it up there, and Reagan's doing that fucking horrible laugh, and he's like, you fucking, and he's gonna fucking do it in, and then come into me, and Pazuzu goes, oh, you're a fucking priest, you're even better, whoop, into him, and he falls down and comes up with the pasty devil face, and he's gonna go for Reagan, and in what must be, and you've got to view it as this, and I'm not religious at all, I am not religious at all, and yet I still love these movies, but in what must be a monumental fight of his own inner strength and spirit to combat Pazuzu's demonics, who's taken him over. He's inside him. He's he fights back, and he comes back to himself, to the Jesuit hotshot priest, Father Karras, does boxing, goes jogging and all that, and he becomes human again. Right, there's that window, there's them steps, fuck off. So he's made the ultimate self-sacrifice to save Regan and to destroy what you'd think Pazuzu, or at least drive him out. So Pazuzu, pissed off with this, and so at the exact moment, I'm not having that, Karras is lying there dying, almost dead, and then you've got the Gemini killer gets electrocuted. I'm going into his body, but I'm going to bring remnants of Karras. Now, in the studio cut, Karras is in there because you see Jason Miller, and he does talk with his old friend, Lieutenant Kinderman. And then you've got the Gemini killer as well. So they're two separate identities locked in the same body. In Legion, that is not the case. Brad Dourif, the Gemini killer, with Karras's face, not Jason Miller, but the Brad Dourif Karras, will say to Kinderman, look, he's in here with us, and he sees my killings. He experiences it. He's going to be here forever. He's going to suffer as well. Blah 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 blah. And but we've got to remember that the devil is a liar. The devil uses the truth and lies together. He's a deceiver. So Blatty always said, no, he's not in there. It's Pazuzu inside the Gemini killer, but Karras, it's got Karras's body, but it's not Karras that's in there. So don't worry about that. But that's his original plan. So I think Karras being in there is actually even creepier, because being forever tormented to watch the body that he's actually in doing these horrible things. Although that body he's in is not doing those horrible things, because the Gemini killer, Pazuzu, is controlling all the catatonic patients in the psychiatric ward. So they find their fingerprints on everywhere. And Mrs. What's her name? Cleverly, I don't know. Who's the little old lady who says are you the radio repairman? And Georgie Scott's going yes. You don't look like the radio repairman. He goes, oh no, I am. What's wrong with your radio? And she holds up a pair of hands holding nothing. She goes, you look at this. And he goes, She goes, I just knew you're not the radio repairman. This is a telephone. And he goes, oh shit. And she goes, don't worry, not many people know the difference. But she has obviously been used to do some killings. Using the power of Pazuzu's demonic possessive powers. So all these old catatonics are doing the killings and all that. I didn't mean to go really in depth onto the plot mechanics, but this version very swiftly becomes like a double act on stage between Kinderman and Brad Dourif, George Scott and Brad Dourif. And if you notice, all the scenes now that are from the original cut of Legion, the cell he's in is an old gothic bloody cell with like cobbled flooring and like horrible old brick slabs in the background. Really dank and horrible. Rainwater's dripping down through it. It's a fucking skanky old gothic dungeon. In, of course, Exorcist III, it's proper like big tiles behind him and all that. Like, you know, it's a world of difference. The two of them sit there, and you've got, and I think this is wonderful as well. You've got like this gothic sort of window up in the top, in the centre of the room, far side, but two beams of light will come through, and it kind of falls a little bit on the wayside of Brad Dourif, but it does illuminate, you know, Kinderman a bit more, and it's almost like the light doesn't want to touch this bastard. But those beams of light are very similar to Max von Sydow arriving, you know, at Regan's house, and the beam of light coming down. And it also, because it reminds you of the Amityville Horror, you know, that lovely Rhode Island, was it Rhode Island? Amityville, you know, the house with the windows look like eyes and all that, like it's kind of framed like that, but these two eyes are staring down with like laser beams. And the two of them will sit either side of the frame. And you have this, it's mainly monologues from Brad Dourif. Mainly monologues. And then occasionally, like, Kinderman will like really take fucking resentment. And he fucking backhands him on, like, you broke his fucking nose! You've got Nurse, what's her name? Oh, I wrote this down here somewhere. Nurse Allerton, played by Nancy Fish, who's... Now, horribly, what you realise once you've seen the film, she's escorted one of the original catatonic killers to go and kill the priest who gets his head, you know, and all that, like, in his confessional box. And she's been sitting outside without realising that compadre, once she's escorting to the confessional, has gone and committed a fucking murder, you know. But she's weird. You kind of don't like her. You distrust her. She has a real antagonistic relationship with George C. Scott's character because he's demanding, you know, all the time. And when he realises, hang on, that man in there, that looks like my friend Father Karras, but he's giving me all the details about the killings, so he knows what's happening. How can he know this? Where was he found? What's his backstory? He was found wandering by the river, blah, 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 in a sort of total amnesiac state. And he's been that way until about a few weeks ago, when suddenly he began to make slow progress and come round. Well, why is he in that room then? Well, he turned exceptionally violent, and he said he was the Gemini killer. And like, you can see George Scott's like, fucking hell, you know, why'd you fucking tell me this? You know, it's all important to my fucking case, my investigation. And he says, like, what was he wearing? Was he, because it's Father Karras, he says, was he wearing a priest's suit? And they go like, a priest suit? I don't remember. And the hospital sort of manager is played by Scott Wilson, and Scott Wilson plays Dr. Did I write that down? Dr. Temple. Scott Wilson is in The Ninth Configuration as well. He's in many movies, and he's a wonderful actor. But in this, his nuance is he's forever smoking, but pursed lips and multiple fingers holding it, and it gets really annoying. But that's the point of it. It's a character trait, a character nuance. Of course, he's been being used by the Gemini killer and Pazuzu to open the fucking door, those big security doors and all that, so that these people can get out and all this sort of shit. Like, and he wanted this guy to bring Kinderman to him, so the two can meet. Because I want to tease him about what happened, because Kinderman was involved in The Exorcist, in that case, and Karras was supposed to be your friend. Well, I'm gonna fucking torture you. You know, oh, issued a clear invitation to the dance, you know. But yeah, Nurse Allerton, their weird relationship. She's a scary looking thing to begin with. Nancy Fish, well, yeah, the character anyway, with a sort of ruby red lipstick on, like, and a nurse's garb. But she's got mad curly hair trying to squash down with that nurse's little bonnet thing. When you see him talking to her at one stage, I'd never noticed it before. There's a fly buzzing around, and it lands on her hat, and it scurries in behind her, and it cuts to, you know, Kinderman again, and then goes back to her, and a fly. And you're thinking, did I just see a fly? Did I see a fly there? Yeah, I could have done. And it goes and disappears again. You just see it very quickly, but it's definitely there. I've never heard that get discussed before, but clearly, you know, they've allowed it to happen. I don't think it's just an inadvertent thing that Blatty left in there. But she's great, and even though, like, he's backhanded, you know, Brad Dourif, and broke his nose, you know, next time you see him, he's got a big fucking plaster up his fucking head. And she then treats, you know, Kinderman's hand, and you do see a bit of a bond between them. But he has said to her, like, well, what was he wearing when you found him? I don't remember. It'll be in the file. It is not in the file. It is not. Oh, again, George C. Scott. Oh God, you know, it's a powerful performance. Scott was amazing in everything he ever did. Patton is exemplary. Islands in the Stream, The Changeling, you know, Firestarter. So many movies. Power. He liked doing genre films as well. I mean, look at this. And he's got one of those big face. He reminds me of my old man, Big Kilt Papa. He reminds me a lot of my old man. And his face was. I'm looking more like my old man every day, apart from all this shaggy mess. Like, my face is taking on the proportions of my dad, and the ruddy complexion as well. And but my dad had a wicked sense of humour. It was really personable. But when there's a wrath, he was in a bad mood. Oh, you fucking knew it. His face was serious, and it was like a brick wall. It was like a fucking huge brick wall. Like, and George C. Scott has that. And when I look at George C. Scott, I see that authoritarian stance, that face, power, gravitas, really indomitable spirit. I am right, you are wrong, and you are going to suffer. You know, Patton was exemplary for that sort of thing. But when he softens, when those eyes go warm and the face cracks into a smile or a bit of sorrow, you melt, and it's such power and command of your own face. You know, most of us can't act with our, well, we act with, but Mrs. Kilman always says, oh, I hate it when people take a picture of you. Because I always go, and do a stupid fucking big goomerish face, like, big shit-eating grin. I can't do it naturally. She goes, you just smile, you know. But, so we overact, most of us. If they put a camera in front of us, I've got one in front of me now, and I'm probably overacting like crazy right now. But when people of that stature and that experience suddenly have to break with the stone wall, and he does it several times in this, and it breaks me apart every time. When he first gets told about Father dying in the night, and he's had that dream. Oh, let's say about the dream, because he meets Father Dyer in the dream. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, didn't I, beforehand? And he goes, you're having the same dream as me. I'm not dreaming, you know. And then you cut to like some horrible flash imagery of stuff happening, and then you get the phone call, and it's a shot looking at Kinderman's house, and you just hear his voice become, yes. And he's obviously getting told Father Dyer's died, and he goes like, what are you telling me? And then he goes in, and it's a great old school sort of one shot take where he walks in. You are him. The camera is Kinderman, and people are on the phone and all that, like, and they see him, and all his police are there, because don't forget, that's the first murder there, isn't it? So the police are everywhere, like, and they're putting the phone down and, like, you know, sort of, you know, nodding to him and all that, and like everyone's sort of like And there's tons of people there, and he goes into the room where Father Dyer had been admitted, and he saw him only the day before. Gave him a penguin, for God's sake. Not a penguin biscuit bar, a stuffed penguin. Not a real stuffed penguin, a fluffy penguin. And I'm trying to dilute what is a powerful moment. And like, it's just, people just look at him and like put their heads down. And you've got a guy taking pictures of the air, all little bottles of blood. It's clever. When I first saw this movie, when it was Exorcist III, I did not notice two things in that sequence. All the bottles of blood, the crime scene photographer's taking pictures of, didn't notice that. And I didn't notice a huge thing above the bed, where it's like, a police exhibit, evidence, sort of masking tape and a bit of a black bag up there. I didn't notice any of that at all. But Kinderman walks in, and you can tell he's holding back absolute agony and rage. And he checks the hands, about the fingers going missing and all that, like, and just goes. And then he steels himself to pull back the shroud. And of course, obviously, whether the head's there or not, I don't know. The head has been cut off, like, but the head, they could have put the head back on the pillow. We don't know, we don't see it, but he basically just goes. And then composes himself, because he's doing a job. My best friend, my new best friend after Carras, who was in the original movie, he only met Carras, I think, once or twice. And but that isn't the point. And he goes, what are these, these bottles? And then he goes, God, there's just tons of bottles of blood there. What the? And he goes, well, that's all his blood? Well, not all of it. The killer used some of it to leave a message. He said, what message? And again, you've got this fucking big thing on the wall, and none of us noticed it. He goes, oh. It says, it's a wonderful life. With wonderful spelled with two L's at the end. Another trait of the Gemini killer. The Gemini killer kills people who's got a K in their name, and everyone's got a K in their. Not everyone, not all of us, but everyone in the movie gets killed has a K in their name. And the Gemini killer, Venom, and his real name was trying to take revenge on his evangelical father, who was in the book we know to be a very abusive father. Now in Legion, you hear about the father, and you know that he's reenacting revenge for that and trying to put shame on his father, because his father's name began with K. What was it? Keith Chegwin. I can't remember his name. But so that's the whole modus operandi and motive for the Gemini killer. But Pazuzu's just taken this and run with it, basically. Cheers, y'all. But most of the film, in the first sort of third, is the same as what you get in the theatrical cut. But Legion then will go into this double act and just the wordplay of Brad Dourif. And there's no sort of, Father Morning doesn't get mentioned. Kinderman goes and sees the big priest, the big wig, Father Brennan, Crilly! Ted Crilly! If you're into Father Ted, you'll know what I'm referring to there. And Bishop Brennan goes and sees him, and they have debates about theology and what's the connection. But Blatty uses one of their best scenes, a big sort of talk of it at the night time, in the big sort of the church university, I think is what it is. And for all trainee priests, and all this, and definitely this debate. But the big clock just goes, the big swinging, chum, 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 just stops, and Kinderman notices it. But the bishop or whatever the hell he is, the big priest, he just carries on, and he's got a whiskey there as well. Like, and he's just thinking, I can't think of any connection at all, and. To the killings and all that, and what happened with Reagan and the Exorcist. They're clutching at straws. But you get like a big sort of set piece for a false scare, and Kinderman, lights go all weird, and he hears noises outside. The priest just sits there, doesn't react at all. But Kinderman, he's a detective, isn't he? So he goes out and he stands on the balcony. Wonderful architecture. the sets, well, the locations that they use are exquisite, so beautiful. Apart from like Brad Dourif's cell and the hospital itself, which is a bit fucking sterile, as hospitals tend to be. And he's like looking around, and the lights go off in the corridor, dum, 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 dum. And he's like, and you get all this weirdness taking place. And there is, if I remember rightly, there is a statue of what's meant to be Christ again, but the head's been changed, and it's the Joker. They put the Joker's head on. Yeah, the Joker from Batman. That's there, and he's holding a dagger, I think, as well. One of the daggers of Megiddo, perhaps, or we're getting two things mixed up here. But it's a jump scare because as he's like looking around, like it's all super, super eerie. This woman comes, hey, oh, didn't mean to scare you there. And he's like, fuck's sake, would you give Bishop Bigwig his speech? Right, bye. And she skips off down the stairs. And if you look the way she's wearing, I can't tell if she's young or old, but she's that sprightly and like bubbly and effervescent. And she's wearing like a black shiny Mac, and she skips down the stairs. And it's almost like some kind of like fairy or spider version of a fairy whisking herself off into the night, having delivered, the parchment. Let's bring another film into it, Night of the Demon. Give that to the fucking twat in there and like give him his speech and all that. But it's another weird scene, and Blatty does this a lot. You think, are we going to get an explanation for that? You're going to find out who she was, and he just goes in there's his speech, But they'll meet again and they'll talk more, and you'll find out that it's actually the guy that found the Gemini killer wandering around was a priest, a brother, a monk, Brother Vane, Brother Vanity, Brother, I don't know, Brother Thanos. I'm not sure what his name is like. And the way that the original version is rejigged, they piece it all together and they dig up Father Karras's body, and they open the grave, and the cameras, and it's clever manipulation of shots from the theatrical cut to this cut, because the actual scene you're looking at is from a different part of the movie in the theatrical cut, and they're saying different things, but they're looking down at you. You're in the coffin, and Kinnaman goes, "That's not Karras," because it's the priest who's in there. So Karras, that's it's all like the dead are wandering round, and they're getting to work, the devil's work. So, but all the you got the decapitation tool. By the way, decapitation tool. I've looked into this, and those things don't exist. There are what's called decapitation scissors. And that's the sound of them cutting someone's head off. And they're used primarily for unbelievable animals. I mean, you would wonder, why would a surgery have a pair of these fucking great big spring-activated shears to cut someone's head off? Why would you have that? Of course, in the great scenes, it's in both movies, both versions. Kinnaman will go to the hospital weapon room, the tool room, and he goes like, "So what's this?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a decapitation tool. It's what we use." And he's fucking designed for the movie. These massive big shear things, and they're trying to work out, how would a little old lady do this? And he goes like, "You need some strength to do this." Clever little moment, because he's getting older. You need some strength to do this. And the guy goes, "No, you don't. No, it's dead. It's no strength at all, really. It's all spring activated." He goes, "It's dead simply like that." They open. Let's go like that. And he goes, "What's that?" He goes, "And there's a sticker on it." He goes, "That's a shipping note. We just got this in." "You just got this in? Why?" "Well, what's wrong with the old one?" "Oh, we don't know where it is." "You don't know where it is? Why is no one telling me anything around here? Fucking hell, that's been used. Fucking." And of course, the big jump scare with the nurse. You just see someone in a shroud come running after, ooh, and off camera, it's done. It's brilliant. And of course, after that shock scene, you find that Temple has killed himself as well. Scott Wilson. In another great sequence, you have Scott Wilson rehearsing his speech. he's going to give to Kinderman about the Gemini killer, and he's and like in a great sort of character moment again, when Kinderman comes into the room, well, you wanted to see me, yeah, and he's put his notes, he's been reciting his notes, he's put them in his desk, his drawer, left it open so he can be fair to them if need be, and he's got tons of sort of demonic effigies around the room, and a bit of nudie stuff, nudie pictures on the walls as well. You know, for a hospital sort of general manager, it's a bit off the wall, and Kinderman's like, you know, nice and pleasant, and he's looking around at all this shit, being a detective, and you see like Scott is looking, he's doing it all, he's clocking everything, and then he's looking at this guy going, and he's not even at the end of a cigarette yet, but he's got another one, and he lights that one, and he's taking ages doing it, and Kinderman's like, fucking hell, and then he starts to stub out the old one, and it's taking ages to do it. And you see all these magazines, and he's like, I just love the science articles. They're really good. And Kinderman's like, yeah, okay. For fuck's sake, you know, you're gonna get to the fucking point. But it's Blatty doing these character things which slow the film down, but put you in the room with these guys and make you as frustrated as Kinderman so clearly is. And of course, you've got Spider-Woman scuttling across the fucking top, which is one of the best sequences ever. It's so fucking bizarre. And then you get the climax, which is way different, of course. You get when Kinderman, I'm going to wrap this up really. Kinderman realises that, right, he's using these comatose people to go fucking walkies and go commit his crimes. And of course, because they're possessed, they've got the skill and strength of Pazuzu, so they can do whatever they want, you know, and they're super agile and fucking, you know, just get anywhere. He's controlling them like automatons, and nurse going out. It's not. Hang on, that's not a nurse. You know, that's one of the. That's what, and he realizes that she's going to his house because things that Brad Dourif has said. He knows about my daughter. Oh shit. So he legs it out like, and he says to like, Danny, get driving now, my house, fucking move it. And you get it's a great exciting scene, going through Georgetown, fucking getting stuck in traffic and all that. And you can see her, it's Vivica Linford, who's also in Creepshow, and many other movies, of course. And in the Father's Day segments of Creepshow. And she's in the back of a cab, dressed as a nurse, but clearly fucking out of the game. And she gets to the door. Kinderman's tried to phone his missus and say like, oh look, you know, but the phones don't go, do they, when they're cut off? It just goes, it's like, but on the other end, she can hear what's clearly Pazuzu, Brad Dourif, who has said I can mimic things. He mimics the sound of trains and animals and beasts and things. It's really unnerving, like, and you know, if you were sitting in a room with him, you'd be like, has anyone else heard this? That's fucking supernatural. You get TV crews, film this, and fucking make millions out of this guy. That's not normal. But he's obviously mimicked the voice of Kinderman on the phone. There's a nurse coming around with some stuff for us. Just let her in, will you? And like, so we now know that that's happening. And this is all the same as in both cuts. And Kinderman gets there, and they've opened the door, they've let her in, like, and of course he goes, Danny, go around the back, you know. Gets his gun out, and his daughter opens the door, like, and he's got his gun like that, and she goes, oh, Daddy's home, because obviously it's normal to have Daddy with a gun. My kids wouldn't be arsed either, you know, to be perfectly honest with you know. And he goes in there, like, his wife's going, what the hell? Who is this woman? You know, you said that expect the nurse. He's like, I didn't call you. Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say anything of the sort, basically. And she's just sitting there. Look, she just came in, just sat down. She's like, just completely collapsed. And you get that fabulous, another jump scare with that decapitation tool that doesn't really exist. And the daughter is close, and she goes, and she's about to snip the daughter's head off, and the cop manages to pull her head away. And it's a great shot because you think, as it goes whoosh like that, and her head seems to fly off. He's pulled her away, and she was like backhanded fucking. Okay, even in the version of Legion, there's still boof, and they go fucking flying towards boof and all that, like, and then she goes and does that horrible weird slow motion fall to the deck. It goes comatose. Now in the Exorcist III cut, that moment marks Father Morning, Nicole Williamson, going into the cell of someone he didn't even know existed, and the big exorcism finale will take place then, and like Brad Dourif was like, oh no, it's not Brad Dourif, it's Jason Miller. His eyes are like, oh, no, you, and all this kind of shit, like. But in reality, it's nothing of the sort. What has happened? No, do you know what? I can't fucking remember what happened. But it's massively different at the end of Legion. And whereas you don't get the big fucking exorcism scene, you get Kinderman going back. This is the one thing that I like and yet dislike about the Legion cut. He goes in there, right, you fucking sent one of your minions, my name is Many, for we are Legion. You sent one of your fucking legionnaires to fucking take out my family. Well, suck on this motherfucker. And he just puts bulletins in, bang, 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 and Brad Dourif just slumps over, and Kinderman walks over and just puts the gun to his head, fucking blows him away, like, and then it ends with a gorgeous, well, is it gorgeous? It's kind of ominous, big, bloated, orangey sun, And then it just ends, and you're like, shit, well, what's going to happen to him? He's just committed, cold-blooded murder. How's he going to explain all of this stuff, to, the Georgetown PD? How's he going to do that? I mean, we agree with what's happened, obviously, fucking kill him, yeah, kill the bastard, But he acts a bit like Richard Burton again, who was in Exorcist II: The Heretic, in the Medusa Touch, where he's in a coma in the bed, but his brainwaves are super active, and he's causing just planes to crash, cathedrals to fall down, mass murder and death, and you got to fucking kill this bastard, Great film, that as well. Totally hokey, but it's great. And came out the same sort of time as Exorcist II, I would have thought. Yeah, around about then. Late 70s, yeah. And I'm sure I've reviewed it somewhere. But how would you get away with it? It's different. The thing is, even at the end of the theatrical cut, there's so much has happened there. Father Morning, and everyone's ripped up and burns, and the fucking thing has gone on fire, explosions, and all sorts of hellish stuff going on. How are you going to explain it all? You can't just say, walk out. Well, case closed. You can't do it, can you? You know what I mean? That said, even in The Exorcist, they leave one case unsolved. Beck Dennings, who, Jack McGowran, who has been found at the bottom of the steps. He's gone out the window as well, and his head's been turned all the way around. Now, we know that Reagan did it. Well, Pazuzu did it. But that never gets explained. So there's still always things hanging in the air, devilish little things flitting about. Folks, there is so much to enjoy with Exorcist III, but even more so with Legion. I now know I'm going to watch this version more than... And sadly, Astradyne, you got me Exorcist III on 4K. It's going to look great. Will it look great? I don't know, because it's very brown, very earthy movie. It's not colourful. Having said that, the reds and primaries do jump from it in any version that you watch. Like the lipstick, the little elements of blood perhaps, a statue, white against the background, a stained glass window. We know things, certain colours will stand out. Faces are incredibly detailed, but it's not a colourful film. It's very done in drab browns and greys and muted colours. It's very autumnal, you see. Another big difference in this version as well, the film starts off with, it's black and white. It starts off in black and white with the credit sequence and the steps and tubular bells playing, and the a newspaper falls down the step, gets whistled down the steps and all that, like, and he begins to prowl the streets of Georgetown, seeing various people, and a priest running bizarrely across one street and then coming back down another street. It's all weird stuff. And then suddenly when the titles come on, you know, colour comes out, like, and it's when you get the police helicopters going up and down the river because there's been a murder committed of the little lad. So, folks, I am going to have to cut this short now because I have an arrival, a family arrival with a lot of food. They've been food shopping, and that's important to get that in. So, but I recommend the Legion cut of, it's gone dark again, the Legion cut of Exorcist III. It's only cut Exorcist III to tie it in with the first movies and create a franchise. It's Morgan Creek for you. Blatty struggled to get this version out, and with Mark Commode's help, you know, because Screen Factory approached him, look, you did the screenplay, have you got any bits of tape and that, like, I'm like, I haven't, but I can help you restructure it. I know where certain scenes should be, and some scenes are literally just a second or two. When you first go to, like, the police station, there's a close-up shot of a hooker sitting there in a chair saying literally one line, and when you see her, I swear down, I thought, Mike, what's that? Oh, that's a transvestite. It's a transvestite. But in the later scene, you can see when he's talking to his detective aides, you can see her out there, and he walks out and she's still sitting there, and it's clearly a woman. So the close-up shot looks really bizarre. And I just want to say another thing. The two detective mates of his, underlings, you've got the great Don Gordon in there, he's got a little ponytail, and he wears like an airborne M65 combat jacket. And you've got, and he was also in Omen 3, The Final Conflict, one of Damien's acolytes, then realises, no, we've got to kill all our kids. I'm like, my wife's just given birth. You can't kill my kid. You must kill your kid. You know, my rules are my rules. And he gets done with the iron by his missus because she's turned into one of Damien's acolytes. And it won't be long, I promise you. And this could get interesting. I'll just indulge in more of this. And he's great. I love him. He's got a little ponytail. He's also in Lethal Weapon. Talking about the jumper that came off, like, well, all dressed up and no one to blow and all that, like, to the prostitutes and all that, like, hey, you're hilarious. That's him, Don Gordon. And one of another acolyte is Grand L. Bush. His name is Grand L. Bush, and he's a black actor. He's in Lethal Weapon alongside Don Gordon. He's also in Die Hard. He's one of the two FBI agents, you know. Agent Johnson. No, the other one. He's the Black Johnson, whereas Robert. He was in License to Kill as well. Oh, I forgot his name now. Robert Davey plays the other Agent Johnson. And he's in Lethal Weapon 2 as well. You recognise all these faces, and they're great. And they're great in this. And like George C. Scott takes the piss out of these because they're really naff detectives and all that. Like, but anyway, folks, the Scream version has artwork on the front, newly commissioned artwork, which is fucking garbage. The Arrow version also has new commissioned artwork on it, which I'm going to show you, which I prefer, but it's still garbage. That is the artwork for Exorcist III 4K from Arrow Video. And you know, you got their big fucking pincery head decapitation surgical tools, and you know, a headless statue. I get what they're doing, but it gives the wrong impression of the movie. It looks like some satanic, you know, 80s slasher movie, which it most certainly is not. However, the discs themselves, you can replace it, you can reverse the sleeve and have the original artwork, which has got George C. Scott at the top of the stairs, green swirly mist, there's the steps coming down, and that great look, do you dare walk these steps again? Which is far, far better. Because I think that, although that shows things which are in the movie, it's kind of given the wrong impression. I think. But it's well worth getting hold of. So the 2 cuts of the movie, and on that, I should say, on that UK version, you've got a commentary by Kim Newman. I fucking love Kim Newman, and Mark Kermode, both of them with K's in the name. And but I've not heard it yet. I've watched the film since Astradyne sent it to me. I've watched the movie, but I haven't listened to their commentary yet. And that is going to be, I want to settle down and really just, indulge in that. Both of them are great, verbose, articulate, very literate and very knowledgeable folk. And, Mr. Exorcist himself, Mark Kermode. But Kim Newman and his very enthusiastic, ebullience. I love it. I love him to bits. So I can't wait to listen to that. That's going to be a non-stop fucking bicker banter. And I'll learn a lot of things I should have put into this video. But in the meantime, anyway, folks, listen, all I can do is recommend Legion. Yeah, you've got to get around the haphazard nature of it changing aspect and changing quality drastically. But I defy you, now that you've heard me say how good that version is, to not, okay, I'm going to put up with this. Something I didn't do first time round, to my, absolute shame. I didn't give it the correct time of day. I didn't allow it to soak me into its atmospherics and its better storytelling. We all want a bit of explosive fun and special effects and practical effects and gore and give us some of that. But only if it works. When you put the two against one another, Legion works so much better. It's a much deeper dive into good and evil, without the stupid histrionics of exorcisms and bullshittery, and chanting and fucking reading the psalms and rattling rosaries, which is now so old and dusty that it matters not, does it? But a proper debate about evil and and the machinations of it, and the Machiavellian nature of the Gemini killer, well, albeit string pulled by Pazuzu. Folks, you can't beat The Exorcist. And I know there was The Beginning and Dominion and all that, and I've seen them, and I don't want to talk about them. And then you got Exorcist Deceiver. I did talk about that a lot. And most of it was fucking shite, bollocks, load of shit. Should be burned at the stake whoever made this. And he should be burned at the stake. Cheers, you all. I mean, I'd even waste whiskey on him to make the flames fizz a bit more. I thought Blumhouse ruined Halloween with their daft, inept bullshit trilogy, but what they did to Halloween was nothing compared to what the shameful thing they did to The Exorcist. Bringing Ellen Burstyn back and then stabbing her in both eyes for a thankless role anyway. What the hell? That was absolute rank garbage. I despise that movie with a vengeance. And the guy that made it as well. I don't mind admitting it. Just don't say his name. If you say his name, he might suddenly appear in front of you. Then you could get him though, couldn't you? Anyway, folks, I have been always shall be killed. And please, in the meantime, and this ever demonic, Legion filled in between time, please keep it Kilty, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all. And for someone who's not religious at all, I put a lot of stock in these movies. Exorcist and the third one, whichever version you watch. And with Kinderman and with in both movies, Karras is one of the most incredible characters I've ever seen in a movie. He's not what you expect from a priest. but he's a Jesuit priest. Aren't they meant to be the cool ones? Jesuit priests, yeah, whatever. And he's great, and he's into his movies, so we should all, side with him. And George C. Scott again. Oh, another bit I meant to mention. Oh, he's got that. He's talking about. Do stop me if I'm repeating myself. I may have said this earlier on. He's in the room. He's describing, why he knows that Gemini killer. That guy in there knows. Whoever the killer is knows about the Gemini killer, and you've got this pencil neck fucking bureaucrat. You've got your cops crawling all over the place, and he's got Grand L. Bush. He's on the phone, and he's trying to talk to someone, and this guy's shouting, and Kinderman's there, and you've got Scott Wilson going in the background, like that, and Kinderman's just against the firing camera, and he's listening to this guy fucking giving it loads, and he's trying to explain about we gave certain information out, but it was wrong. It's to weed out the fake, people who were claiming to be the Gemini killer. And as he's doing this, he sees in the black body bag his mate, Father Dyer, being wheeled out of the hospital room. He just sees that and this guy's going, yeah, fingerprints. You want to do fingerprints? And he goes, shut up, just shut up. And this guy's and George C. Scott holds himself, and it's controlled rage which has a vent. Wow, shut up, just shut up. And George C. Scott, probably in his late 70s, then could have fucking decked this guy, no problem whatsoever. And but the way he goes and holds himself and then comes back. Yeah, but the mark was on the hand, and it's that kind of crap. And it's brilliant. So he has a little spell. He's much older. He's older than his wife in this movie by far, and his daughter's only young. And but he's with Grand L. Bush, who plays Sergeant whatever, Sergeant Lethal Weapon / Die Hard, Agent Johnson. The one down a corridor, and suddenly he goes, oh, and he falls against the wall like that. He goes, oh, and this other guy's going are you okay? And he goes, I'm all right. It's not. You don't see that again, but it's a little reminder that he's not a young man, and he's going through a really horrible phase. Everyone's dying around him. His nearest and dearest, and his busy mates, and he's met a reincarnation of his ex-best mate, who should be dead, who's now a killer, possessed by a demon. Not a good day out, is it? No wonder his heart has a little heart palpitation. Just give me a moment. It's the carp, it's the carp. I can't go home until it's asleep. Right, do get whatever version you can pick up. The Scream Factory one, the Arrow video one. Oh, change the cover on it, obviously. But get the 4K of Exorcist 3, but get it to watch Legion, because I'm afraid you will find it. Well, not afraid. I'm totally convinced. You'll find it an infinitely more enjoyable and thoughtful and haunting version, because it's more to do with man doing evil things and how we sort of reconcile that. Anyway, bags of shopping are there. I've got to get them away. So, folks, be happy, be healthy, say your prayers by night, and wish the bed bugs good night. Wasabi days. God bless you. God go with you.